Silent Hill 2 is the pinnacle of the Silent Hill series, but was Silent Hill 2 the pinnacle of the entire survival horror genre? I cannot wait for the Silent Hill 2 remake, and with Bloober Team's reputation within the horror genre growing, rapidly developing games like Layers of Fear, Blair Witch and The Medium, they are the chosen ones, anointed to resuscitate and reinvigorate the beloved Silent Hill 2, and I'm so excited to see how they handle stepping up to the horror genre big leagues and resurrecting an all-time classic.
Holy shit.
Holy shit.
It's the real deal here.
But with no official release date for the remake, I just couldn't restrain myself any longer, so I've dived back into the original Silent Hill 2 to indulge in the fear of the unknown, that otherness and the psychological dread and anxiety I only get from playing Silent Hill 2. It's a weird form of masochism. I first played Silent Hill 2 on Christmas Day in 2001 when I was 13 years old, and I spent most of that day battling my bullshit family obligations to be sociable and grimaced with false politeness when thanking my grandparents for the 5th pair of novelty socks I'd received that day, when all I could really think about was getting back to that totally twisted town of Silent Hill. For those who haven't played the game, it centres around protagonist James Sunderland, a widower whose wife Mary died from battling a long illness 3 years prior. But despite this, James receives a mysterious letter from Mary herself in Mary's handwriting, declaring that she is in fact not dead and she is in fact waiting for him at their special place in Silent Hill. So without really questioning how a corpse could physically pick up a pen, lick a stamp and shove it in a letterbox, James makes his way to the previously idyllic and now abandoned tourist town of Silent Hill, and thus begins the slow descent into a hellish world for both character and player. Just a quick warning, there will be some narrative spoilers and minor gameplay moment spoilers ahead. I vividly remember my first descent through the woods at the start of the game when I was a kid. What really should have only taken me a minute took me about 10, because at random terrifying intervals I'd be so startled by some horribly abrupt and disturbing noise that would just stop me in my tracks and make me frantically look around, only to see nothing but the woodland paths, a few trees and the fog that consumes you throughout the town. This was just the first example of how masterfully effective the game's sound design can be. I don't think anyone would have blamed a 13-year-old kid who just emptied half of his bladder down his leg from turning the game off at that point, but for some reason I was totally reeled in like a moth to the flame. Just like the tortured characters within the game, I was lured in by the town itself to confront my inner darkness and my most sinister and repressed veracity. The town is almost like a character in itself, similar to the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, in that it has a degree of agency, in this case to alter both its physical appearance and the creatures that inhabit it depending on who is viewing them. The monsters that inhabit the town are subjective projections of the character's own psyche, physically manifested from the recesses of their own subconscious to punish them for their past wrongdoings. This heavily contributes to one of the aspects that make Silent Hill 2 absolutely timeless and insurmountable in my opinion, the atmosphere. All of the first 4 Silent Hill games developed by the legendary team Silent managed to generate a very particular atmosphere and a kind of essence, a visceral feeling that is totally unmatched and impossible to replicate. Silent Hill 2 in particular contains the most pertinent examples of this in my opinion. First is the actual look of the game. Silent Hill 2 has a deliberately grainy aesthetic which some people might see as just a graphical limitation, and maybe at the time of release it literally was, but it helped give the game character and identity, especially as a device to help facilitate horror and fear. This carries into the fog. It's palpable, it impedes the player's vision so you can never clearly see what nasty, grotesque monstrosities are up ahead waiting for you. It genuinely feels like it is tangible, like it's stuck in the back of my throat or clouding behind my eyes. The way the game is framed, the way it ominously looms, it instills a real feeling of existential paranoia, like you're being stalked when you're out in the open, encasing you in some kind of claustrophobic straitjacket while you're navigating the dangerous corridors of the hospital or the prison. These feelings of impending dread and the omnipresent atmosphere of unease are exasperated tenfold by Akira Yamaoka's beautifully melancholic, hauntingly soothing and nightmarishly ethereal soundtrack.
That's an oxymoron!
The soundtrack to Silent Hill 2 is so much more than just discordant and discomfort-inducing melodies like the more industrial score of the first game in the series. There's still moments where the music evokes shock and terror in the player, but far more impressively is the way that it often delicately emphasizes the helplessness of each character and the pain of the denial that they're all suffering from. Songs like Promise Reprised, The Day of Night, and Laura Plays the Piano are as sad and sorrowful as they are enlightening and hopeful, like floating in some weird out-of-body experience. Adding a deeper meaning and subtext to the series, very few games can match the richness and depth of Silent Hill's lore. Team Silent created their very own unique, detailed mythology and symbolism within the game, especially regarding the series' main antagonists, an evil religious cult known as the Order. Although there's only a few fleeting allusions to them in Silent Hill 2, their sinister presence underscores the entire series and goes a large way to explaining why the town is such an all-enveloping abyss of despair for those who enter, which again adds to the overall atmospheric aura of the world. I think it's important that I touch on the basics of the game to see how nostalgia stacks up against reality, because the gameplay within the Silent Hill series has always been secondary in importance compared to the narrative and the characters within the game. The combat in Silent Hill 2 feels very rudimentary, with your basic melee and shooting mechanics propped up by the semi-fixed, dynamic and suggestive isometric camera angle. This view still created uncertainty with its limiting angles, which was the purpose of the completely fixed camera angles in the original Resident Evil games. It felt pretty on point for the time of release, being combined with the fact that the player could aim, move and fire at the same time, which was a big leap from the tank controls of those same Resident Evil games by comparison. It's not a particularly challenging game either. In the early stages of the game, I found myself walking towards and mowing down multiple enemies and plugging them full of holes like a man possessed. Aside from the combat, the main gameplay element is the puzzles, which are often as bizarrely random as they are challenging, but that's what makes Silent Hill what it is. It's such a quirky, twisted thrill ride. The one puzzle that stands out the most is the box puzzle in Brookhaven Hospital. Long story short, you have to traverse the most treacherous and disgustingly unsanitary hospital corridors whilst having the shit kicked out of you by proper grim nurses with pig bollocks for faces, all just to find the keys and combinations to open this now overwhelmingly intriguing box. God, I couldn't deal with it. My excitement levels were absolutely peaked. I just couldn't wait to find out what was inside that box.
Oh, what's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
And it was just a few pieces of hair.
Pubic hair.
Really? Not only is this absurd because you have to combine the hair with a hook to fish out a key from a skanky drain, obviously, but also because James is with Maria the whole time, who has plenty of long golden locks she could have just, given him. Seriously, James, what even is your life at this point? Combine the surreal but still iconic voice acting, the obsession with jumping down seemingly bottomless holes, and James's preoccupation with drinking medicinal beverages that he's found lying around on the streets.
Oh, that's nasty.
And Silent Hill 2 certainly remains a timeless classic. It's a shining example of narrative storytelling in gaming, and for me, Silent Hill 2 is the pinnacle of the survival horror genre. Following on from Silent Hill Downpour, Silent Hill fans were punished and tortured even more than the game's tormented protagonists, with teases, false hopes, and unfounded speculation born from the pure desperation that one day we might finally be treated to a new game in the series. It was just one crippling anticlimax after another. The pachinko machines, Book of Memories for PS Vita, and Konami's deliberately misleading announcement teases for nothing more than the new Silent Hill merchandise, and of course the totally devastating cancellation of Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro's Silent Hills.
It's too much!
And then there was the flooding of conspiracy theories surrounding the upcoming horror game Abandoned, developed by those con artists over at Blue Box Game Studios, which had people believing that this mystery Dutch developer is nothing more than a crazy marketing front for a new Silent Hill game by none other than Hideo Kojima. Well, this turned out to be a load of bollocks, but the main issue that held me back from actually believing in those theories and buying a first-class ticket onto the hype train was because of just how acrimonious the split was between Kojima and Konami and how irreparable the damage to their relationship apparently was.
You are not my mate, and you are not my fellow DJ! Goodbye forever!
Regardless, the Silent Hill 2 remake is happening and I couldn't be more pumped, and let's not forget the upcoming Silent Hill F as well. That too doesn't yet have an official release date, but by the looks of it, even if you don't suffer from trypophobia, which I don't, those creepy tentacle things sprouting out of those holes just do not sit right with me. Let me know your thoughts on what excites you about the upcoming Silent Hill 2 remake and the Silent Hill F game. Any support for this channel would be hugely appreciated, and if you're interested, I've dropped my Patreon link in the description. I'll see you in the next one.